My roommate at the time, she said to me one day, "I think you have anxiety." And I went into my room and I thought to myself, anxiety? White girls get that.
A powerful moment there. Mental health issues have often carried a stigma within many communities. Our next guest is working to shed light on the fact that many individuals in the Black community are dealing with mental illness in silence and often with shame. Please welcome mental health advocate Stacy-Ann Buchanan. Stacy-Ann, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We heard a clip from your documentary there. Let's talk a little bit about how you ended up in the spot you're in now, advocating like this.
Yeah, well, I personally went through, I live with anxiety, and I was depressed, suicidally depressed, and I had no way of finding help and no one to really talk to. And I just figured I cannot be the only one that's struggling. I cannot be the only one that's suffering. So I decided to make a documentary that talked about how mental health is viewed within the Black community.
And for you, and you're honest about this, when you're talking to your dad and your dad said pray.
Yes.
How did that feel when he said that to you?
I felt crushed, but at the same time I understood that what my dad was saying to me is like generational teachings passed on from his parents and grandparents before. So it's just like whenever you go to somebody, I'm Jamaican, so my dad is Jamaican. In the Jamaican community, it's easily dismissed. When you talk about anything with mental illness, it's easily dismissed. So it's either you drink some tea, you pray about it, or you read your Bible and everything will be okay. And I've always argued to say, if there's a doctor, you can go to a doctor for your physical being. If you're not well, why can't you see a doctor for your mental well-being as well?
And now your dad, though, is a big advocate.
He's a big advocate. When my documentary came out and he really saw the suffering that I went through and how much I struggled, it changed his entire view on mental health, pretty much.
Why is it people don't want to talk about mental health in the community?
It's the stigma, and the biggest stigma is shame. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want people in our business. We don't want to be seen as weak, because in the Black community, Black men and Black women, we have to put on this persona of being strong. It's a strong Black man and a strong Black woman, and we have to come to a point where we have to understand that being strong isn't about how much that you can carry, but it's about what you choose to put down.
And it's difficult. It's difficult to get to that because if you do seek the help, then you face ostracization.
And there's a lot of things that happen with it too. It's systematic racism. It's in the healthcare system. It's how you're easily dismissed and misdiagnosed. So no one wants to go there because there isn't a lot of people in our community that look like us that can say, hey, let me help you out. It's easily dismissed. And we don't want to talk about it because it's like, you can't really help us because a lot of our issues come from stress, from where we live, from how much we can't get a job. So there's a lot of factors that come into it.
How do we change that within the system then? What's needed to change that and get the help people in the Black community need?
There is so much that needs. I think the first thing that we need to do is to start talking about it. So find a safe space, and the safe space happens between us. So if I go to you and I say, hey, I'm going through this struggle, or somebody comes to you and say that, understand that it takes a lot. It took a lot out of them to come to you and share this. So take that as you're the safe space. We need to create more safe spaces. And when we start talking, what we do is we create awareness. When we create awareness, we create a community that's saying, hey, let's ready for a change. And a community that's ready for change then begets a community that's ready to create resources.
And with racism, that has a huge impact on your mental health.
A huge. Being Black is like this emotional war that we go through. Do we talk up? And eventually be labeled as the angry Black man and the angry Black woman, or potentially lose our job, lose potential clients, or do we keep it in? And when we keep it in, what that is doing, it's a blatant injustice and a crucifixion of our mental health. So we keep everything in, and it's time for us to say no more. We've got to let it out.
And you've started a podcast.
I started a podcast. So I branched off from the documentary and started a podcast called The Blind Stigma. So it's still in the same franchise. And what this podcast does is hosted by myself and Dr. Natasha Williams. And we talk about the same issues, mental health within the Black community, but what we do is we create a safe space. I wanted to create a safe space for our audience, for our guests, and for our hosts, so we can come and we can share.
Beautiful. Stacy-Ann, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me, and good morning, everyone.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
And have a great Father's Day with your father.
Thank you.
And it's so nice talking to you in person. We're going to go to more. We'll have more coming up on PT in just a minute. It's nice being out here. Stick around.
It's a gorgeous day. Thank you.